Today we're going to talk about drilling pocket holes in our face frame. The first thing that you need to do is make sure that you have the right step drill from Craig. Now the stop collar that's on here has to be set to the thickness of our material back here, and for that to be done we have to put this on the jig. We're looking to see where the stop collar engages down here to make sure that we have the right depth set for the material. So if our material is 3/4 of an inch, then our stop collar here has to be set to 3/4 of an inch. Looking at where it's set right now, it's set to a 1/2 inch, so we need to reset that. In order to do that, right here on the stop collar, you can see there is a small set screw that we got to get reset here, and that just takes an Allen wrench, turn that, slip the collar down, and reset that. So that's the first thing we have to take care of with doing the resetting work on the drill bit. So looking at the drill bit, you can see that we've got, again, that stop collar. Here's the Allen wrench that fits in there from the Craig jig. We simply loosen that up. We'll set this down in our jig. We'll set the bottom of the cut of the main fluted area to 3/4 of an inch. We slide up the stop to make sure that we're at the right point, and then we take and tighten that stop down. That's the first thing you need to double check, is to make sure that our depth of cut from our drill bit is going to match up with the material we're going to use. So that's set at 3/4 of an inch. Next thing we want to check before we start doing any drilling is on the side of our Craig jig right here. We've got several lines indicating the fractions and the thickness of the board that needs to be used. So again, if you take a peek and look real close, you can see right here we have those lines, and then we have to make sure that the 3/4 of an inch matches up with that edge. And looking out here, it does. But again, reason for that is we have an adjustability. We can put 2x4s or all the way down to 1/2 inch thick material in here, and then that has to be adjusted accordingly. So this is all set to go. Next thing we want to do is chuck our bit up into our drill. Now notice one thing, I am not using, I repeat, I am not using a cordless drill, I'm using a corded drill. The reason we use a corded drill, number one, we've got unlimited power, so it'll give us a good power source. But speed-wise, we want to run this at a high speed versus a low speed like you might have with a cordless drill, to bring those shavings up out of that hole and out of the slide so it doesn't clog up and heat up the bit. Bits that are chucked up into a cordless drill, due to the lower RPM, sometimes get overheated and then they lose their temper and they lose their sharpness. So always use a regular corded drill for this operation. Also make sure that when you look at the switch down here next to the trigger, that it's in the forward location. Double check that that flute is spinning in a direction so it's going to pull that the sawdust up out of the hole, to make sure that it's going the right direction, because it's very easy to put it in backwards and you complain, hey, why isn't this drilling? It's because the drill is spinning backwards. So that's an issue. The last thing we want to go through the process here is we're going to be going through the process of drilling our rails with our pocket hole jig. And again, we want to do that on the bad side. So when you evaluate your pieces, you can see on this piece right here, we've got a piece of, looks like there's a part of a knot there. Look at it from the front looks okay. So again, you want to make an evaluation of all your pieces and mark or locate on there, you know, what your pieces are looking like, what is going to be the better of the two sides that's going to be out, and then obviously we want to drill the holes on the back side. So I have all my pieces set up and laid out. I also have my back pieces here as well for my stiles. And to set this up in the jig, you take that back piece that's going to be on the back side, you're not going to see. In this case, we're going to set it up flush with the edge of the jig, and we're going to go ahead and tighten that down. I'm going to drill a hole on this side, I'm going to drill a hole on this side. That should be just fine for our project here. The wider the board, you can drill more holes in. Really, this one really only needs 2 holes, about 1 inch in from the edge. Could we put another one in the middle? We could, but it really is not necessary. So again, we'll drill this, bring it up to full speed once you're down into the insert, plunge it in, pull that dust out, and as you spin this down, as it slows down, pull the bit out and pull all that sawdust out of there. So you can see that I plunged, I cut, and I brought it back out to bring sawdust out. And again, I'm going to slide this over to the other edge. I've got a flush on this side of the jig. I'm going to use the hole closest to the edge of the jig. I'm going to repeat that process. Now here's the trick. You have to really watch and make sure that you're not going to mess this up. We want to take this board and flip it end for end and keep that same side towards the pocket hole. So you want to spin it this way. It's very easy to flip it this way, and all of a sudden you have pocket holes on both sides of the board. We don't want that to happen. So again, make sure your pocket holes are facing you when you put that board back into the jig. Lock it down, and then drill your other holes. And you simply repeat this process for each one of the rails that's in your face frame. Now sometimes, depending upon the wood that you're drilling into, it can push a little harder or less. You know, if you've got cherry or hard maple, it can be a lot harder to work with than the oak, and you just have to simply be a little more patient, but just kind of work that drill in and out and get that nice clean hole. Again, last thing you want to do is make sure that the holes are clean, they're all the way down where they should be, and you just move on. Now when we're looking at the thinner rails, these thinner rails on our project here happen to be 1 5/8". The reason we made them just a little bit wider than the 1.5 inch spec'd in the plan is we want to give you a little more room to put the pocket holes in here. And to do that with this particular project, we're going to use these two holes here that are on the top that are closest together. So these two holes here that are close together, we use those for the thin rails. If I were to use a 2-inch rail or wider rail, I'd use the two outside holes. You know, they're labeled A, B, and C. For this one, we're using B and C, but for a wider one, we'd use A and C. So, again, the same process. The uglier or the second side of the two sides goes towards you. I'm going to make sure that I'm not only going to line them up here, but I'm trying to line these two holes up right in the middle of my rail. And again, we're going to go ahead and clamp that down. And now I'm going to drill two holes at the same time. In this one side. So again, we cleared the hole, bring it back into the guide. One thing you want to watch for is don't start the drill and then go into the guide, because you could hit the edges of the guide that will dull that blade, and obviously it's harder on the equipment. We flip it around, again the holes are towards us. You can see I'm just kind of blowing off, keeping that jig as clean as possible. And I'm going to go ahead and do the other side now. And we'll drill the hole in the back side. There's my second or middle rail. Put that off to the side, and again, taking a look at the two sides, evaluate which side you want to use. This side, because it's got looks like a little sharper grain here, like there might be a knot further out on the tree. I'm going to use that side. But really, it comes down to what looks nice to you, and that's all that really matters. Because again, this project is for you. You're not going to run out and sell it to consumers and charge lots of money. If that were the case, we're going to production and going to commercial business. There again, now you might be looking for a more straighter grain. And you can see it kind of hesitated that time. I was hitting a little firmer denser wood, and that causes some problems. So again, push it in the best you can, and just be patient. This isn't real hard, it just takes some time. And again, I could line up lines here and mark that, but it's not really necessary. So there's our rail holes set up for the rails for our face frame. And then the next video you can watch, I'll show you how to do the assembly process with the face frame. Thank you.